This week on The Futurists, Katie King, Miss Metaverse.
Ultimately, it's the same things we're going to be experiencing now, but connected directly to our brain. That's kind of where it's heading, is that it's going to be within us.
Welcome back. We're on The Futurists. I'm Rob Tercek, your host. Now, normally, my co-host, Brett King, would be sitting here with me, but he's on the road today in Amsterdam en route to who knows where, globetrotting again. In his absence, we have a special guest, Katie King, also known as Miss Metaverse. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
We're going to have a lot to talk about today because this topic is about social media, and it appears that the entire social media universe is imploding right now as we record. Let's start with the news. The news from the future this week is all about, wait for it, billionaires making boneheaded moves. So let's start with Mark Zuckerberg, formerly of Facebook, now of Meta. Incredibly, Meta has gone through two record-breaking devastations this year. The first one was that the price of the stock dropped by a record amount in February when he announced, when he did his earnings announcements. The stock lost 25% of its value in a day. Now he's outdone himself. The company's stock has now dropped a cumulative 75% this year, based mostly on the amount of money that's being invested in the Metaverse project. Facebook Reality Labs has been, or Meta's Reality Labs has been the subject of some $15 billion of investment. Last year it was 10. This year is $15 billion with a B of investment. And the results haven't been very, very promising. So finally, Zuckerberg appears to have listened to investor feedback and slashed 13% of the staff. 11,000 people lost their jobs at Facebook just in time for the holidays. Facebook lost a total of $800 billion of value in 1 year, which is astounding. And that's not 800 million, that's 800 billion. And Zuckerberg personally has lost 100 billion of his own fortune. But don't worry about him because he still has $38 billion in stock to his name. So he'll be just fine. In other boneheaded billionaires, we have Sam Bankrupt-Fried. Sorry, that's Sam Bankman-Fried, but probably better now known as Bankrupt-Fried, from formerly FTX Trading and its related firm, the hedge fund Alameda Research. And this firm blew up in spectacular fashion, and it has been dominating the news cycle because with it apparently has taken the entire crypto sector down. And so unfortunately, the crypto world has been getting nothing but bad news this year, all of 2022, but they're really going out with a punch here because FTX blew up. The $13 billion has been vaporized. It's gone. Many people lost their savings, so it's really hurting a lot of folks there. But what's astounding this week is the news that's coming out. There's a new CEO who's come in to kind of clean up the mess. And a revelation was made yesterday. It's been covered by a lot of outlets, but it's really quite astonishing. Here you have a $13 billion hedge fund and one of the largest exchanges, I think the second largest crypto exchange. Neither organization had a chief financial officer. They're managing an awful lot of money. And as a result, they can't account for anything. Like literally there's $8 billion they cannot account for. There were some $372 million of unauthorized transfers on the day that they declared bankruptcy. Only $740 million of the holdings was secured with assets in cold storage. So the rest of that $13 billion, it seems to have been vaporized. Now they've uncovered some $4 billion of loans, including $1 billion of loans to Sam Bankman-Fried himself. So this story is not done. It's going to be a developing story, I guarantee you, and there will be indictments that come. But the big question is, how do you run a multi-billion-dollar exchange with no chief financial officer? And the answer is badly. And they're evidence of that. That's FTX. The third story, and the one that we just is irresistible, we cannot resist this story, is Twitter. Elon Musk charging into Twitter. Honestly, the motivation here is a mystery to most people. It's like, okay, yes, the guy has been a successful CEO. He is quite an extraordinary entrepreneur. And yes, he also happens to be a power user of Twitter. Does that therefore mean he should go run the company? Well, he bought it. I think he kind of halfway through that transaction had changed his mind. But the Delaware court system eventually obliged him to make good on his promise. So he ended up buying Twitter at a price that was way beyond what it was worth, promptly fired half the employees immediately, fired them by email without any particular rhyme or reason, including some of the people that were fired included the people that controlled the badge access codes so that employees could enter and leave the building. And they weren't able to get out of the building or the parking lot after that, the remaining employees, I should say. Now he's given an ultimatum to the rest of the staff that by this end of this week, that they actually have to commit to working extraordinarily long hours right through the holiday season or take a severance package. And surprise, spoiler alert, a lot of people are taking the severance package. And so critical development teams seem to be missing in action. And so the whole world now is waiting for Twitter to crash in some fashion. And yesterday there was some trouble on that service. So I think the most boneheaded thing here, apart from him threatening thermonuclear war against advertisers, the most boneheaded thing of all in terms of this Twitter transition, taking Twitter private, is the idea of charging the best users money to use the platform. This goes against the current completely. This Twitter verified badge thing was so poorly handled. First, he kind of tweeted it out like a brain fart, like, hey, we'll charge you $20 a month. Turns out journalists don't want to pay $20 a month to share their leads and share the stories they're working on. So that landed with a thud. Then he said, we'll make it $8 a month. And that didn't work out so well either. And it ended up being the source of some humor where people were kind of tweeting, gee, the world's richest man is asking you for an $8 loan to keep his business going. And so that's embarrassing on its own. But the other thing is that this goes against the grain. At this point, most social platforms are chasing creators with billion-dollar creator funds, and they're willing to share revenue in advertising in many other ways. And they're being very creative about it because it's highly competitive to attract the best creators to the platform. Twitter's trying to go the opposite way. They're trying to charge people money to create on their platform. So with that in mind, Katie, welcome to the show. If you want to chime in by bashing away at any of those people, go for it. This is an opportunity to have some gleeful bashing.
Oh, do I love some gleeful bashing? Oh, boy. Yeah. Wow. Gee, it has been interesting to watch this downfall of the social media ecosystem everywhere from Twitter, as you're mentioning before, doing the verified badge. Oh, geez. I mean, Elon, what is going on? First, we didn't know if he was going to get Twitter. It was kind of iffy, wishy-washy. We didn't know what was going to happen. On one hand, we had so many of us, the free speechers, let's just say, that I roll with, to a certain extent, they felt this was really promising, that Elon was going to come in, provide some level of balance and, up things, make it more united in some kind of way, right? And I don't know. I mean, the first thing out the gate we're seeing is this verified badge. And, it's very interesting to see. I don't know how much it's going to work. I think there's a lot of people for so long that, dreamed of having the blue check mark next to their name, applied to do so and couldn't for many years. So maybe it could provide some people access that maybe they could buy into it if they weren't able to apply before for a badge. Maybe that's what they were trying to do. But oh no, it's not about that. It's about the people at the top and monetizing. And I think there's a big difference between what people were expecting to happen and kind of what's really happening. So, I was funny. I was just reading something in the news before about Elon, and they're saying, the name Elon has dropped from the baby names list because of this Twitter ordeal.
Oh, I'm sure he's heartbroken about that. And he does like babies. We know that. Well, the interesting thing about the charging $8 for the verified Twitter badge is it's really just a drop in the bucket in terms of revenue. It doesn't add up to that much revenue for the company. And so it's really peculiar that he would choose that as his first move on the chessboard. The company does need cash. Because he took the company private, he saddled it with debt. Now Twitter has about $1 billion of interest payments that it now needs to make every year. And the company was not profitable or wasn't regularly profitable in the past. So it wasn't very clear how they were going to achieve that $1 billion, but this is not the way to do it. If they charge the verified badges to say, 25% of the users, that still wouldn't come close to covering that gap. So it's a very strange thing because undoubtedly it's driving people off the platform. Right. People are going away. And you see that every single day, people that but also people in the news. There's a kind of attrition, and the big question is it, is it going to be the world leaders that leave Twitter? Will it be the journalists that leave Twitter? The influencers? There's quite a few prominent folks on that platform, but already we're seeing a kind of exodus, at least of some users, away from the platform. Some people because they don't like Elon or they don't like the way he's handled this. Some people because they don't like the fact that Twitter is a cesspool with tons of hate speech and a lot of aggression, and they're just looking for something different. What's your take on all that? You say you're interested in free speech, and I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be a bit more balance. Of course, there's conflicting opinions onto what free speech means, right? I mean, some people, as you said before, want to go on social and kind of bully others, let's just say, and that happens a lot, and it's a real problem,
particularly on Twitter. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They managed to drive a lot of people who are LGBTQ people were driven off the platform because of the immense amounts of hate that they had to deal with. So, from my viewpoint, free speech can be weaponized. And I think Twitter is a good example of how it can be weaponized. And for the people on the receiving end, at one point I spoke to an executive at Google who was responsible for safety. And she said, you have to understand that when you go into a site like Twitter and you encounter that kind of weaponized hate speech, she said it's like walking into a football stadium with 30,000 people saying, you suck, you should die, you should kill yourself, we're going to kill you. She said, the psychological damage there is real. You can be harmed by that. Now, I know that there's a group, probably some folks who are listening to the show who will say, oh, there goes a snowflake. Like, here's somebody who's talking about how words can hurt your feelings, and sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah, I get it. Here's the thing about free speech. The First Amendment right to free speech pertains only to the United States government. All right. The United States government cannot abridge free speech. It doesn't apply to private corporations. Private corporations that are trying to run a civil community or a thriving and vibrant community, a constructive community where people can exchange ideas freely, they're under absolutely no obligation to allow anybody to go bash other people or attack them. So, that's my view on free speech. Tell me where you're at on the subject, because I think it's a lively topic. It's certainly at the heart of what Elon's proposing to do. But what it sounds like he's going to do is open up the site to trolls and to the worst kinds of folks. I mean, I don't know if anything, it's going to drive more people away.
I have a real problem. It's such a fine line, to walk with these things. I mean, there should be the obvious. Any bullying, harassment, seriously needs to be shut down because it's just not fair to people. Also, a lot of things that happen too, like in the free speech community, so to speak. There's a lot of people that are fearful and confused and get bad information, and they'll run with it. I mean, I've experienced it personally. Because of my previous last name, Katie Aquino's my first marriage. I had a lot of people that were apparently religious or something. And because my last name was Aquino, it sounded like some evil general or something that they thought I was related to. And yeah, really, really bizarre. I mean, they were coming after my YouTube channel and writing all these wild comments. And honestly, it shut me down for a while. It affected me, and I'm a strong cookie, Yeah. So, if it can get to someone like me, I could see it really, it's harmful, period. Words are energy, and what we put out there matters. And, there does need to be some control about things. Now, what Elon said he was going to do when he came into Twitter was to take on the botting, right? Yeah. Because the botting is a huge problem. And the thing is is that really going to happen? And to what extent? To me,
I think he thought verified badges was the way to deal with that, right? But that didn't seem to work out so well. Right.
Exactly.
So that's the way to weaponize it, right? So instead of it just one angry crank in his mom's basement, bashing away at people, that angry crank can now have an army of 30,000 bots who repeat it, and then that becomes a torrent of abuse. And so for the people on the receiving end, that can be quite difficult to deal with. Mm-hmm. Well, there has been a uptick in the number of people migrating from Twitter to Mastodon. Let's talk a little bit about Mastodon, because I think that's really relevant in this context. The whole point of Mastodon is that it was designed for people who don't want to get abused.
Right.
And so, you can create your own server. That term gets confusing, but basically it's your own group on Mastodon. And that group doesn't have to deal with anybody else. And it's quite easy to ban bad actors. And you can basically just tune out the noise. And as a result, Mastodon has become a refuge for people who just don't want to get hassled. And that includes all sorts of marginalized groups, but it includes a number of other people as well. I just joined Mastodon like everybody else who's leaving Twitter. I figured I'd check it out. And I noticed that there was a group that had a lot of journalists who I know. And I was like, oh, how cool that they're coming here. And there's not so much noise. It's not so cluttered with crap, so you can actually have a reasonable conversation, which is what it's designed to do. Interestingly, there's no algorithm, right? So there is a feed, but the feed is just a sequential listing of the people that you follow.
Chronological, finally.
Yeah, that's right. Which a lot of people have been asking for, right? Because the problem with the feed is you feel like you're being manipulated. You're being force-fed stuff that the system wants you to look at, however real that might be. Talk to me a little bit about your take on that, because I'm interested to hear what you think of these alternatives to Twitter.
Oh, wow. I've always been a fan of the alt platforms. I would say my alt platform journey actually began maybe around YouTube and the crackdown with the censorship. That was around maybe 2015. And I noticed that a lot of channels that I watched, they weren't saying anything bad, but they were just kind of a little out there. I mean, I watch everything, obviously being into sci-fi and blah, 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 blah. Like some people can get into some interesting topics, but it wasn't anything hateful or, they would give credit to having this channel taken down, for example. But I noticed a lot of the channels I was watching were having their channels taken down. And if they weren't taken down, then they were being heavily restricted as to how many views and what type of feedback they were getting, how much views they were getting overall. Now, because of that, and seeing this huge change in YouTube and a lot of creators leaving, this allowed me to start checking out some of the other alt platforms. So I started watching more content on BitChute, Odyssey, and then, also now there's Rumble and all these other alt video platforms, which they are good sometimes, because honestly, on some of the main platforms, it could be hard to find creators that you like because of these issues. And they could be blacklisted or censored in some ways, and it could not even be their fault, just a misunderstanding, and that happens. I mean, YouTube is it's a massive ordeal. I can only imagine trying to keep up with all of that, with their teams over there behind the scenes. So obviously there's going to be some growing pains with that. And I think that now a lot has changed with YouTube. However, as the time has gone on, we've seen way more action on these alt platforms. Now, particularly with Twitter, you're right. There's now Mastodon, which I just signed up for as well. Very excited about. And yes, I like the idea of servers. I like the idea of having more of a community, a chronological timeline. Mwah! So I have faith.
So that's what it seems like to me, that these gigantic platforms that we've had for the last 10 years or more, actually Facebook's 18 years old now. Like it's old. And it's sort of where everybody is, right? There's almost 3 billion people signed up for it, not using it, but that accounts that they've created cumulatively. So those are the platforms where everybody is, Twitter and Facebook. And there was a sense that you want to be on the platform where everyone is, because that's where you can reach the most people. And this kind of attention economy dynamic emerged, where people competed really for attention. And that bred some really bad behavior. For instance, on Twitter in particular, in an attention economy, the people who are good at getting attention are the most dysfunctional people on the planet. I don't need to name who they are, though one of them was the president of the United States. But basically, it rewarded the worst possible behavior. So you have these people who were certainly getting a lot of attention, but they were getting it because of their narcissistic and bad behavior. It's also true, I think, to some extent, of YouTube stars as well. People like Jake Paul, very controversial, because there's no bottom line. Like the guy will go lower than you can possibly imagine in order to get a view or to get a click. And it works. But that's what an attention economy gives you is pathological narcissism. And I think we've seen some
Race to the
examples of it.
bottom.
Yeah, that's quite right. So now these social platforms seem to be fragmenting into a way that's interesting in the sense that it won't have the same economics in terms of mass reach, because you'll be on a platform where you can't reach everybody. By design, that's how Mastodon works, right? You're only going to reach the people who follow you, and you have to figure out how to get those people to find you because there's no feed, there's no algorithm. Some of the other services that have become really successful, but kind of under the radar, I think. Discord is growing and not just in popularity, but growing in importance because it's where everything NFT is happening. And increasingly, a lot of the crypto community is there. Crypto used to happen a lot on Telegram as well. But the communities around NFT, I've noticed on Discord, are just thriving and booming. But they're niche communities, right? They're big. They may be big niches. But this is not about broadcasting to this huge number of people. Instead, it's about cultivating deep connections with a group of people that you actually kind of know. Where you have some kind of connection to them. And that's quite different from the attention economics that we got on the big platforms.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, part of my rise as a futurist was through Facebook. Facebook was massively important to my career. I mean, I made so many great connections, fellow futurists in the community, people in tech. I've met people that are working on BCI, brain computer interfaces, all of that. And, at one point, posts would get thousands of likes. I'd be building a community, and all of that just really started to trail off. And now these days, I barely use Facebook, maybe just Messenger to talk to people, family and friends and stuff here and there, people in the community here and there. But just really excited about these alt platforms, where it's heading. It's a fresh start, new beginning, so to speak. Right. And I think we're all kind of ready.
You're a fan of Telegram, right? Tell me about your experience on Telegram.
Love Telegram. I know people anywhere from yoga teachers to authors that are using Telegram now. Now, what's interesting is that when Telegram first started getting rolling, particularly sort of like the underground of the alt platform world, sort of, right? It's Telegram, it's not just for, chatting or encrypted messages or something. And no, it's actually evolved into a sort of like a ongoing chat social media platform. The way it works is that you basically, as a creator, you can build a channel, and it's just one ongoing chat, and you can arrange it where you have a chat. Your members can continue talking with each other while you post your own content, your new videos. It's a good way to keep in touch and sort of have a more personalized following as well. It's definitely an option out there, and I've been exploring it myself. I'm considering starting my own Telegram channel as well.
Mm-hmm. It's also, I think you mentioned it's persistent. It's not evanescent the way some platforms, like Snap was famously, your messages disappeared after a period of time. So it's when more stuff stays. So you don't have to feel this compulsive urge to check it out constantly every time there's a notification that dings, it pulls you away from your workflow. You can check it periodically and you won't miss anything.
Yeah. And there's also one more last great feature is that if there is a lot of content on that timeline, in the chat, so to speak, and you miss out on it, you press the button at the bottom. It's like an arrow pointing down. It'll just rapidly bring you to the latest message. So you skip over all the stuff you missed, which cool. I kind of like. Yeah, because you're right. With these platforms, there's a lot of pressure to be keeping up with things and feeling like you have to, I got to go back and read all this stuff. And, I think these alt platforms are exploring new ways that we can kind of get around these issues.
Cool. Well, in a moment, we'll go into the future of social platforms. But before we do that, I want to do our lightning round. Now, normally this is something that Brett would do, but he's traveling. So I get the honors today of asking you to do the lightning round. So lightning round of questions. First, let's start with name your first experience with sci-fi. It could be a movie or a book or something else that really got you excited about the future.
Oh, wow. I have to say, I've always been a futurist at heart since I was a kid. And I've been inspired by everything. I mean, going to Tomorrowland at Disney World and being like, wow, this is the future, the carousel of progress and all of that. I love that as a kid. And then, as I got older, 1999 is when the Matrix movie came out, and that movie rocked my world. I was like, wow, this makes so much sense, and just about technology and where it's heading. And wow, I mean, yes, very dystopian, but, for the time, I think all of us, people that aren't into sci-fi were like, wow, this movie's amazing. Like, really thought provoking. So, yes. And also Michio Kaku, his earlier works, he was in documentaries. There's a great documentary around 2007 that I watched that really inspired me. A lot of documentaries, movies,
Cool.
anywhere from.
You're an avid enthusiast for futurist materials. You've been influenced by it your whole life. So that leads to the next question here. Next question in the lightning round is, name a futurist who has personally inspired you.
Well, my first mentor was futurist Glenn Heemstra, and he was the original owner of Futurists.com. I believe it's now between maybe Glenn and futurist Nicholas Badminton, who Nick is another friend of mine. Haven't spoken in a while, but awesome people, great futurists, super, super talented. They all bring their own unique styles as far as forecasting and speaking on the future. And Glenn was my first mentor, and it's very important to me. It's how I came out as a professional futurist.
Cool. Can you tell me about a particular forecast or prediction that inspired you?
Oh, yeah. Ray Kurzweil and the singularity. I mean, 2045, so much, so many projects that have looked forward to 2045 as a year where we merge human consciousness with AI, or, we have this merging event happening. And yes, Ray Kurzweil definitely inspired me.
Super. Okay, well, that's it for the lightning round. You're listening to The Futurist with my guest, Katie King. I'm Rob Tercek. Our co-host, Brett King, is on the road. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back. Stay tuned, because in the second half, we're going to talk about the future of social media.
Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcast, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific, and the FinTech 5. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network, and Next Gen Banker. For information about all our podcasts, go to provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Futurists. I'm Rob Tercek. My co-host Brett King is traveling this week, and our guest is Miss Metaverse, Katie King, talking about the future of social media. And before we jump back into things, I want to talk a little bit about a new player on the scene. Not that new, but now becoming really very important. I'm referring to none other than TikTok. And TikTok's an interesting company in a couple of respects. One is it's not quite a social media company. It's not quite a video company. It's something in between the two. TikTok famously hit the scene in 2018. It's a combination of two apps from China, one called Musical.ly, which made it possible for people to do lip syncing, and one called Douyin, which is is basically the Chinese version of TikTok, the prototype of TikTok. The app gained traction very, very quickly because it was extremely easy for young people to use and make good videos and be creative and fun. And if you remember back in those days, other social media platforms had become quite political, partly because of the politicians that were using them, and partly because of this hate dynamic that we spoke about in the first half. And TikTok seemed to be a refuge from that. So TikTok has been growing incredibly fast. It is the fastest growing social platform. It got to 1 billion users faster than any other, all the other ones that we mentioned earlier in the show. It has been the top app for about 2 years. It's been the top grossing app. It has been the most downloaded app for the last 5 quarters. Ad revenue for TikTok tripled in 2021, and it tripled again this year in 2022. So it's now generating more revenue in advertising than Twitter and Snap combined. It's still nowhere near the size of Facebook, but what's important is it's clearly devouring a part of Facebook's business, and it really has Facebook on the run, unlike any other social platform. So far, for the last 18 years, Facebook has been able to fend off all threats or acquire them. Things like Instagram and WhatsApp, simply, its strategy, its defensive strategy was to buy the thing that was going to kill it next. But TikTok seems like it's coming on strong, and that's not all. TikTok also is introducing a number of other features. There's a TikTok music app that's been rumored for a long time. The parent company, ByteDance, already owns a music app that they've been running in Brazil and Indonesia, Malaysia, and now it looks like they're registering that TikTok music name as a copyright and as social media handle in many countries around the world, including the U.S. Rumor has it that they've been negotiating with the record labels for some time. So we'll start to see them integrate a music app in the near future. But that's not all. TikTok also is eroding the profit of Netflix. Interestingly, users can pay money on TikTok. You can gift money to people that you're a fan of. So if there's a creator that you like, you can send them a gift. And as it turns out, streaming video platforms like Netflix are the number one subscription app for most people, most demographics. But with this one exception, teenagers, it's not the case. With teenagers, they are giving more money to TikTok performers. So it's actually starting to affect the future even of Netflix. So this app has been extraordinary in terms of its impact. And now parent company ByteDance is also getting into VR. They bought Pico. They're rumored to be building their own version of a metaverse. So they're clearly coming after Facebook on every front, or Meta, I should say, on every front. So that is a little bit about the rapid growth of TikTok. But there's another part of the story, which is that TikTok is viewed as a national security threat. I'm not making this up. A number of senators, including Senator Josh Hawley, have called for getting rid of TikTok altogether, banning the app altogether. And indeed, the United States Army and Navy have banned it. You're not allowed to use it. The app does gather an awful lot of data. It collects a tremendous, it's one of the most intrusive apps. So it is viewed as kind of a data gathering tool. And because it's Chinese, TikTok is now falling into this contentious dynamic between the United States and the Chinese government. And there's some concern about whether TikTok is a national security risk. I'm not making this up. There's a negotiation that's been going on since the Trump administration between the U.S. government and TikTok about how to proceed. And TikTok has a big initiative underway called Project Texas, where they will keep all U.S. user data on Oracle servers in Texas. That's their bid to comply with with the requirements the U.S. is setting forth. However, there is one big concern, which is that the Chinese government has an edict that all apps must surrender information if they demand it. And so it's very clear that TikTok will deliver information to the Chinese government. And so some people view that as a national security hazard or a national security risk. And the last piece about TikTok is that it can also be a tool or an instrument for the dissemination of propaganda. Now, there's some irony here because the organization that's making that claim the loudest is Facebook. And let's not forget, just a year ago, Frances Haugen was on Capitol Hill in Washington, revealing insider information about Facebook as a tool for the dissemination of propaganda. So there's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black. But nevertheless, there is some evidence that TikTok has been used this way in Kenya and in other nations around the world, in Kenya, Taiwan, and the list is quite long. So there's some fear that TikTok could be used as a way to, kind of pollute the minds and persuade people who are using it. So that's TikTok. What's interesting about them is it's a video app. It's not a social media app in the sense that you don't follow friends. It's not about your friends and what they're talking about. There is an algorithm. It's algorithmic video. It's incredibly addictive. In fact, that's the reason I would not use it, or I would recommend deleting it, is because you will find yourself absorbed so much by the pure addictive nature of that algorithm. So let's talk a little bit about that algorithmic media versus social media, because that's clearly one of the big trends that's coming. We hear about, the Facebook algorithm. We hear about the Twitter algorithm and how it surfaces content. But a moment ago, we were just talking about Mastodon, which by design is non-algorithmic, doesn't have an algorithm that recommends stuff. There is a feed. It's just a chronological feed of the people that you follow, but no one's pushing stuff at you. Talk to me a little bit about the algorithm.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, TikTok really started climbing in for the creator community. in the recent few years, maybe the past 2 years, especially, I would say, I know I've seen a ton of creators go over to TikTok and make TikTok their sole focus, which made me really surprised because my cousin, for example, she's a yoga teacher and, very spiritual, and she wanted to start a YouTube channel, and she ended up doing TikTok instead. And I said, well, what happened to the YouTube channel? Why don't you do a YouTube instead? And she goes, no, Katie, everyone's on TikTok's where it's at, For You page, the algorithm. And her posts have gone viral, on the For You page on TikTok and all that. And, I know quite a few of creators that have found a lot of success on TikTok where they would have never have had so much success on other platforms for whatever reason. And so I think there's a lot more opportunity for creators on TikTok for several reasons. And, it is very addictive. And that is an issue. It's the short form content, constantly scrolling. And yes, everything is just given to you based on what you've liked before or what you discover and whatnot. So I see it staying and I see it growing. It's definitely a huge competitor to Meta for sure. And a lot of the live streaming is that started going as well. And they're really building out TikTok.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. So TikTok is innovating across the board. I mean, they're literally turning on a service that competes with just about every mainstream service. And they're also innovating in advertising. They have a marketplace where they'll put creators directly in touch with advertisers. And so creators can create kind of viral campaigns on behalf of advertisers, and they put them in. And so they've created this marketplace, which I think is quite innovative. And one observation I would make parenthetically is there hasn't been that much innovation in US social media. If you think about it, like most of the innovation in the past 5 years has been around moderation tools, hate speech, groups, and so forth. But none of this stuff really moves the needle in terms of getting people excited in a great big way. And I would say a lot of the innovation that's happened has been around monetization, monetizing the audience. If you were to look, so for instance, at Facebook today, you'll find that more than half the page, if you're looking at a web browser, more than half the page is advertising related. Like very little of it is content. And so TikTok has been innovative in many respects that serve creators. The tools are so easy to use. It's so easy to make a funny video. It's so easy to be cool on TikTok. And they can, you can provide you with like a great soundtrack, which I think says a lot. Don't forget that's kind of the core of this idea that you can be a pop culture star by remixing somebody else's music. And it's also a platform that's broken a bunch of artists, most notably Lil Nas X, who was unknown. He was an unsigned artist in February 2019 when he posted Old Town Road that immediately went viral. And very shortly after that, he got signed. And very shortly after that, he teamed up with Billy Ray Cyrus to do the remix version, which was in the top 10 for 18 weeks, I think. So, really a quick story from nowhere to superstar.
Yeah.
So it's a platform that create hits. I think that their strategy for launching a music service alongside it makes a ton of sense because that's so core to the platform. And what we don't see with the other social platforms is this idea of an integrated suite of apps, which I think is quite interesting, right? In China, you've got super apps like WeChat, which started out with text messaging and payments. But if you have those two things, you can do a lot more. And gradually that led to all sorts of other kinds of programs, games, shopping, other kinds of entertainment, and a way to pay for things in the real world. And as a result, those apps started to integrate all sorts of other features. You can think of it as like an app as a platform for other apps. And that idea of a super app isn't limited to China. That's also happening now in other parts of Southeast Asia and in India and increasingly in Africa. But weirdly, it hasn't happened in the United States. And Elon Musk has noted this, right? He has said several times now he wants to turn Twitter into a super app for the US. So he wants to add on, in addition to the short text messaging or microblogging at Twitter, he wants to add in payments, which he knows quite a bit about because of his time at PayPal and X.com before that. So he could bolt messaging together with payments and a music service. You can start to see a path there forward for Twitter, but that's going to require an engineering team that he no longer has and money that he hasn't got to invest unless he wants to dig a deeper hole for himself. Meanwhile, TikTok's already doing it. It's already happening. Like, the super app from China is here, and it's TikTok.
Right. It is indeed. I mean, I think TikTok has a tremendous amount of potential. And I know several creators in the tech community that are particularly focused on VR. And they were coming to me and saying, hey, have you heard about, Pico and what they're doing? And they're going to bring Pico, under the same company, right? It's ByteDance, Pico, TikTok, same thing. So I think, talking about the future of social media is that, there's going to be an even greater sphere of influence once you start bringing in VR, AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, all these other technologies together where, the opportunities are really going to be endless. You can just imagine.
Well, tell me more about that, because I think one of the operating assumptions, certainly at Meta and clearly at ByteDance, is the idea that there's a progression from connecting people together on a social platform and then adding more media to that platform. And then somehow magically, we're all going to start to put on head-mounted displays and go into VR. And yet that hasn't worked out so well for Facebook, right? So I think everyone agrees now that Facebook's, Horizons world has fallen flat. It really doesn't resonate with people. There's the maximum number of users they had was 200,000. I think it's down from that figure now. Their goal was supposed to be 500,000 this year of users. They're not even at half that. They don't expect to be. And also, the people who look at it, most of them don't come back. So it hasn't worked out so well. Talk to me a little bit about that progression from social media to VR.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed a lot about this progression of social media to VR, and just a lot of hype, so much hype. I mean, I remember even Magically back in 2014, it's supposed to be more of augmented reality, right? Or mixed realities for one, but they made it look so beautiful and amazing. It was going to be mind blowing. And then things just kind of started falling apart and just not really materializing. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Oculus, right? I think I have a Oculus Quest 2, well, Meta Quest 2 as it's called now. But it is a great thing to experience. I mean, I've had some pretty interesting experiences in VR. You do connect in a way. It's sort of like that spooky action at a distance type of thing. It's like you're meeting someone, and it's not the same as just connecting on a social media platform. It's different in VR.
And it's more dreamlike. You feel like you experienced it. I agree. I am a huge fan as well. Like, I love Oculus Quest. Sorry, Meta Quest. I love it myself. It's the best hardware. Like, as much as we get a kick out of bashing Facebook, and as much as Zuckerberg deserves it, the reality is his billions and billions and billions of dollars of investment, it actually led to the best hardware that's out there right now. How does Pico compare? Is Pico any good?
I've heard that Pico has a lot of potential, but as far as the user base, I don't really quite see any of that yet. But I'm hearing right now, I believe that they're reaching out to a lot of VR creators and influencers right now to have them start familiarizing themselves, because I think the jump off is coming with this. I believe that Pico is gearing up to be able to really come out the gate to contend with Meta. Now, going back to Horizon Worlds, right? Horizon Worlds, wow, so much, so much hype. I mean, I remember that the video that came out, maybe, what was that, last November, right?
With the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. What a facepalm. I'm honestly, seriously, how could they release that? No,
I have no idea.
Zuckerberg needs someone near him to whisper in his ear and say, dude, don't go with that. Like, he needs an editor, because honestly, that stuff is embarrassing. Even this week, they just released another video, and it's so, there was a video that just came out last night about Godzilla stepping on a Wendy's burger joint or something. And it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It was like a news report from inside of Horizon Worlds. Mostly the 3D is not good. We have an audience of about 3 billion people who are playing video games, and they've been conditioned to 3D worlds that are quite good, right? The state of play with a game engine like Unreal 5 is cinematic quality real-time 3D. It's that good.
Beautiful.
And so that's the expectation, right? And what Facebook's doing, what Meta is doing with Horizon Worlds, is they're falling way below that expectation. I get it. It's hard because you have to render that world simultaneously for multiple users. And that's a really hard scaling problem. But the fact is, the end result just feels lame compared to a good video game. And there's no way around that. They need to address that issue, I think.
Way too cartoony, way too cheesy, like No. I mean, when
And
I
also,
saw, I
it's
was
like,
just like,
dude, with no legs, you're floating around like some sort of like angel or something. It's creepy and weird.
yes, very much so.
So is this the future? Are we going to live in a creepy and weird social network that's 3D? Like, do we have to put on a head-mounted display to talk to our friends?
No, we don't. No, we don't. And listen, just for the record, I called myself Miss Metaverse way before the Metaverse actually became a thing. Okay. So just putting that out there. But yeah, it's hard to say. I still believe in VR and AR and all that. I know AR is going to go somewhere for sure, but VR, it's an acquired taste. And here's another thing: not everyone can put the headset on and be okay.
Right.
There's people that get really sick from it.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. I could stay in VR for quite a long time. But there are people that, just it's really uncomfortable for them. So there
Yeah.
are growing pains here.
Yeah, it's a user design problem. I mean, it's a design problem if you have a product that makes 10% of your users seasick. Like, they need to figure that out. They're working on it. But tell me honestly, how often do you use your Oculus Quest or your Meta Quest? How often do you use it, like, per month?
Do you really want to know?
Mm-hmm.
Rarely. And that's, I mean, if
the average user uses it twice a month. Like, it's basically a paperweight or a doorstop that gathers dust, and occasionally you can go into a VR world. So we haven't really developed a habit for VR.
Mine.
Oh, well, you've got,
Right
at least
there.
it's there. Look, and it's plugged in. So you're charging it up. Good for you. You can put it on after the show. But we haven't really developed a habit where we do have a social media habit and we have a mobile phone habit, and the two grew up together, right? We can say that social media got entrenched. There were tons of social platforms before smartphones, but the smartphone and the social media, it kind of fit together, and they amplified each other and became this global habit. We just don't have that habit yet of putting a thing on our head. And anyone who's got a hairstyle isn't going to want to put a thing on their head. So this isn't really the most. There's a reason why they always show pictures of bald dudes when they show people using head-mounted displays, because the hairstyle doesn't really matter for them. I can't imagine people wearing that thing all day long. But over time, devices are going to get smaller, cheaper, lighter, faster, better, and so forth. That might take 10 years. And I think that's a key point. Zuckerberg has been pretty consistent in saying that. He's been telegraphing that it's going to take 5 to 10 years before we get to a form factor that works. Meanwhile, other companies are coming forward now with long rumored augmented reality displays, notably Apple. What do you know about Apple Reality?
Oh, wow. Yes. I mean, so much anticipation regarding the Apple VR that's coming. And I think they're going to do a wonderful job from what I hear. I hear that the way they're designing the new headset is going to be lighter than the Oculus. They're trying to really step it up in order to, beat out the competition. So I'm curious to see how it is when it comes out, however, but this is Apple. Not everyone's an Apple user, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is with Oculus is that it doesn't matter if you're Apple or Android or whatever. It's, anyone can use it if you're within that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's true. Almost certainly the Apple device is going to be connected to the smartphone, because everything Apple does is, all their new devices are just accessories that reinforce the value of the iPhone, because that's their franchise, and they're not going to do anything to take away from that. So it's unlikely that you'll have an AR headset, and also the heavy duty processing and the network connection is all going to come from the phone, right? Because that's where you've got the power to do all that stuff. That's why they put ultra wideband in the new generation of Apple phones, so they can connect to some other devices and stream that data fast. So that means you'll have a lighter weight headset, probably some eyeglass form factor, although nobody really knows. We've seen these artist conceptions of what Apple's reality glasses are going to look like, but we don't really know what they have in mind. That's been the most anticipated thing in this field now for 2 years running. Everyone knows Apple's working on it. No one's seen anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, how will the AR work versus the VR headsets, right? I mean, in terms of comfortability, in terms of everyday usage, people, I believe Apple went into the AR space particularly because it has more of a usage ability than, say, virtual reality solely, right? Because you can go out into the world with it. You're on the go. It goes with the phone.
Yeah, but there you're really vulnerable to 5G coverage, right? So if you don't have 5G for the fast network connectivity, then you're going to get a lag, and that's going to kill the illusion. That's a gigantic issue for augmented reality. And the folks at Magic Leap you mentioned a moment ago, they ran into all these problems a couple of years ago. So this is not new. We know what the problems are. The sun is really bright. That's one. So it's really hard to make a display that can defeat the sun, right? That's that. And then that's going to use up tons of power. So then you have a battery problem as well. But the connectivity, in order to get a augmented reality overlay to register accurately, even as you're moving around, and to keep it registered, that requires millimeter precise ability to get that registration exactly correct. It means you have to have incredibly low latency network. It's a good use case for 5G, but that's not the 5G they're building in the United States right now. The 5G we're building is basically faster 4G. Some people say we're gonna have to wait until 6G comes out, which is like at the end of the decade. It's like 2027 before we're going to start to see that. So again, this may be a long dawn for AR in addition to VR. I think it's going to happen. I think I'm with you. Like, I'm excited about it. I can see the use case for it. Certainly VR games are fun. That can be incredibly immersive. And if you haven't used Tilt Brush, or anyone who's listening hasn't used Tilt Brush, to me, it's my favorite thing to do in VR because it's super creative and talk about immersive. You can paint the world around you and move through it. I find that fascinating. So I think there's a lot more potential there that hasn't been tapped yet. Do you see these things connecting together in social? And tell me a little bit how social and immersive 3D work together.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to be merging in the very near future. I definitely believe so. I mean, just as we were saying before about TikTok and Pico, we're going to be seeing these all across the platforms, especially, obviously Meta and Horizon Worlds not working out so well so far. But yeah, this is where it's heading. I mean, I do believe that people want to have those more immersive experiences, just figuring out how, what's the best way to get there. And, for now, I think that there's kind of half and half, right? There's half people that solely focus more on the VR, AR, side of things. And then there's people focusing more on the social media side of things. So we're just bringing it all together now. And yeah, there's some growing pains with it, but it's going to get better. It's going to get more lightweight, more connected. And you're correct. The connection 5G, waiting for 6G, we're going to have to see how all this comes together, right?
One of the things I've noticed is that the companies that are touting themselves today as kind of metaverse companies, it's not just Meta. It includes some decentralized Web3 companies like Decentraland, Sandbox, and others. But what all these companies have done is they've focused on business model first.
Right.
They're trying to build worlds that brands can exist in and can market in, which makes it feel a little bit like a shopping mall. They're trying to build worlds that you can do commerce in some way. So that also starts to feel like a shopping mall in a way. Or they're trying to create these kind of prefab experience parks, which to me feels a lot like Disneyland in VR. And what none of these things are focused on community first.
Yes.
And we have a very good example right now of an immersive world that is successful, that focused first and foremost on community and monetization second. And of course, I'm referring to Second Life. And quite a little bit about that. What can these new VR platforms learn from Second Life?
Oh, wow. Second Life was just so innovative for its time, way ahead of its time, right? Some people call it like the original Metaverse in a lot of ways, right? Because you could build your own worlds and have people go to your world and visit, or you can have your own private world. And as it says, as in the name, you live out a second life in this experience. And there's something about it that hasn't quite translated into the virtual experiences that we're experiencing today. There are things like alt space VR for Oculus that exist. VR chat was another go at bringing community together. However, you run into the issues, as we said in the beginning of the show, people that go in with bad intentions and, try to be silly and do bad things. So they're just trying to figure out like how to, provide the best experience. Now, the thing with Second Life is that Second Life never really ran into these problems that we're seeing on social today, with the harassment and, it's just a totally different experience. Now, I think because of that, it has more of a game vibe to it, and it is more about the community solely. Now Second Life does have monetization. People will make their own clothes and whatnot, their own avatars, and sell it, and they do really well on it.
It's the original creator economy, 100%. It's the original creator community, right? And it's thrived. And people don't realize there's 1 million people using Second Life today. 1 million people. The thing is 20 years old. Versus there's no social platform, no VR social platform that can claim to have anything close to that, 10% of that even, in terms of active monthly users. So it's really quite extraordinary that the durability of that, but there hasn't come along anybody who's got a better vision of it. I think a big part of that is it was built as community first, and they strived very hard in the product design to foster community. Okay, let's put on the futurist hat for a second and talk about 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. Where is this all going? What do you envision 20 years out?
Oh, well, I mean, the big ultimate vision, right, is merging humans with technology, right? And the thing is, right now, we're in the phase of the wearables. We're going to be wearing, that's already happening now. We're wearing our smartwatches, we're wearing, VR headsets, and soon AR headsets. And, that's the externalized version of it. But slowly, over the next 10 to 20 years, particularly definitely within 10 to 20 years, these are going to become more embedded within us. And, as a lot of the futurists like to talk about, ultimately, it's merging man and machine in some ways, but it's supposed to be bringing sort of more like a superpower like ability to us, right? It's supposed to be about connecting us, bringing us all together, right? Mm-hmm. Will brain computer interfaces do this? BCIs? It's hard to say. I mean, ultimately, it's the same things we're going to be experiencing now, but connected directly to our brain. That's kind of where it's heading, is that it's going to be within us. We'll have our own body sensors that are tracking, how our body's doing, instead of going to the doctor.
If people are worried about these apps collecting a lot of data about us today, just imagine what happens when they can tap what's going on in your brain and your imagination and in your dreams as well. Oh boy. Mm-hmm. We try not to get dystopian on this show, but it's hard for me not to think that way. So we go through growing pains. Do you see 10 years of growing pains, or do you see less time than that?
I do see growing pains. I do see some growing pains. However, I think there's going to be a lot of beautiful things to come out of technology as well. A real true, more sense of togetherness, making the world smaller, right? That's what social media did, was made the world a lot smaller. We can make friends all over the world. And as these technologies start becoming embedded within us on the go for whatever reasons, whether it be to overall have a better quality of life, to have almost telepathic abilities through these technologies, whether brain computer interfaces, whatnot. But ultimately, I think that it's hard to say. It depends on what we as, humanity want out of it, what we're fighting for, what we're striving for, what we desire, and what we allow, right? I mean, the purpose of technology is to make our lives better, to bring us together, to make us connected, to give us opportunity, right? So as long as we focus on the positive and, really discuss the ethical side of this, that's a really big part of it, right? Is that the ethics and, what's best for humanity, period.
That's the part of the story that I think isn't getting enough play right now. And I think it's the most interesting part of the story. As people are leaving big platforms, these big centralized platforms, particularly Facebook and Twitter, where they're moving towards, it seems to me, is more fragmented, not as unified, smaller spaces where you can have better connections and better conversations. And so maybe this phase that's changing is this phase of like one person tweeting out to everybody in the universe. Maybe that's the thing that's going to change in the future. Maybe it won't be that kind of huge reach. Instead, the future might be more fragmented, smaller but richer communities. Well, Katie King, thank you very much for being on The Futurist. It's a pleasure to chat with you. I've enjoyed this survey of all the turmoil and change in the social media business and some of the future of VR and AR. All exciting stuff. Thank you very much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to coming back again sometime in the near future.
That would be great fun. So, folks, thanks for listening. Before we roll off, I just want to let you know that as Brett usually says at the end of the show, that's it this week for the Futurists. If you've enjoyed listening to the Futurists, please do us a favor and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple, or anyplace else. That really helps other people discover it. And I want to say thank you and give a shout out to all the folks who've been giving us positive feedback, suggestions, and those reviews, because it turns out we are growing really, really fast now. So thank you very much for the support. And please keep supporting the show. This has been a great ride so far this year, and we continue to keep doing it in the new year. I want to thank our producer, Kevin Hirschhorn. I want to thank our other producer, Elizabeth Severance, and the whole crew at Provoke Media for helping us make the show. You guys have been great, and it's been a pleasure working with all of you. Katie, thanks for joining the show this week. I will see you in the future. Well, that's it for the Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did. Please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.